On a misty October morning, the peaceful town of Clearwater was shattered by the disappearance of Emily Carter, a young environmental researcher investigating toxic dumping at Lake Vermilion. As police uncovered chilling clues, suspicion fell on Daniel Brooks, a quiet contractor working for NorthWaste Solutions, the company Emily had been exposing. But when Daniel vanished and later turned up dead, clutching a letter naming 5 powerful executives, the truth exploded into national scandal. What began as one woman's fight for justice spiraled into a web of corruption, greed, and death, forever marking this as the crime that shook Canada. The morning fog rolled gently across Lake Vermilion, turning the glassy surface into a pale sheet of mist that hid everything beneath. It was October 14, 2017, when the quiet town of Clearwater, Ontario, was shaken by news that would soon consume the entire country. Emily Carter, a 27-year-old environmental researcher, had vanished without a trace. She had been staying in a small lakeside cabin for the weekend, gathering data for a project linked to her university. Locals remembered her as polite, reserved, and always carrying a small leather notebook filled with sketches and notes about wildlife and water purity. She arrived Friday evening, parked her silver sedan near the cabin, and waved to a fisherman passing by. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. When Emily failed to return home Sunday night, her colleagues reported her missing. By Monday morning, police found her car still parked neatly near the shore. The engine was cold, the doors unlocked, and her phone, wallet, and car keys were untouched inside. A thermos of coffee sat on the front seat, still half full. It was as if she had stepped out for a moment and never returned. The search began immediately. Officers, volunteers, and divers combed the dense forest surrounding the lake. They searched the hiking trails, the rocky shoreline, and even the marshy inlets that stretched toward the north. Nothing. No footprints, no broken branches, no signs of struggle. The area around Lake Vermilion was known for its serene beauty. Tall pines, echoing loons, and waters so still they reflected the sky like a mirror. It was not a place where things simply disappeared, but as the hours turned to days, unease began to ripple through the town. Clearwater had never seen a major crime in years. People left their doors unlocked, children played freely by the docks, and everyone knew everyone. Now fear crept in quietly, spreading through every conversation at the diner, every late-night call between neighbors. The first strange clue came from a local park ranger who found Emily's boot print near the dock, just inches from where the wooden planks met the dark water. Beside it were faint tire marks, leading down the dirt path that connected to the main road. But no one remembered hearing a vehicle that night. The fog had been thick, and rain had fallen briefly after midnight, washing away most of the traces. As divers entered the lake, they found the water cold and murky, visibility barely a meter. They searched for days, pulling up branches, old fishing gear, and rusted debris, but no sign of Emily. What made the case even more unsettling was how ordinary everything looked inside her cabin. Her bed was made, her laptop open on the table, and a kettle still sat on the stove. Her notebook lay beside it, filled with careful observations about pollution levels, algae growth, and something circled in red ink. Sample contamination. Source unknown. For the residents of Clearwater, that phrase became the beginning of endless speculation. Some said Emily must have drowned. Others whispered about someone wanting to keep her quiet. As night fell over the lake, and the wind rustled through the trees, Lake Vermilion's calm beauty turned ominous. The reflection of the moon shimmered on the surface, concealing whatever secrets lay beneath. Days turned into weeks, and the mystery surrounding Emily Carter's disappearance deepened. Investigators focused on her cabin, hoping to find something the initial search had missed. Every item in the small wooden home was catalogued. The notebooks, her camera, soil samples, and a half-finished report on environmental violations. One detail stood out. Emily had been studying the water systems connected to Lake Vermilion and the nearby Clearwater River. Her work focused on pollution levels that didn't match any natural explanation. It appeared she was close to uncovering something significant, something that might have made her a target. Her last notebook entry was dated October 13th, just a day before she vanished. The words were shaky, written hurriedly. "They're dumping it at night. Trucks, no labels. Smell of chemicals in the air. Must report soon." Investigators believed she was referring to illegal dumping of toxic waste into the waterways. It wasn't uncommon for corporations to cut corners, but the possibility of organized environmental crime in a small town like Clearwater was shocking. Police soon learned that in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, Emily had received multiple anonymous messages. Her colleagues mentioned that she had been increasingly nervous, often double-checking her locks and avoiding late-night phone calls. A neighbor, an elderly man who lived near the lake, told police that he saw headlights around midnight the night she went missing. He described a dark-colored pickup truck, idling near the water for several minutes before vanishing into the fog. Detectives tracked down surveillance footage from a gas station along the only road leading to the lake. At 11:47 p.m., a black pickup truck appeared on the screen, its license plate obscured by mud. The driver's face was hidden beneath a baseball cap. Strangely, the truck was never captured leaving. Hours later, Emily's phone registered one final signal, a brief ping from the edge of the lake before going permanently offline. Divers returned to Lake Vermilion, their movements slow and careful as they scanned the lakebed with sonar equipment. On the third day, one diver's flashlight reflected off something metallic buried deep in the silt. It was a large steel drum, sealed shut and covered in algae. When brought to the surface and opened under forensic supervision, the smell of decay and chemicals filled the air. Inside was a solid block of concrete, and embedded in it were small fragments of fabric. Lab results later confirmed the fabric contained traces of Emily's DNA. The discovery turned the missing person case into a homicide investigation. Panic spread through Clearwater. The once quiet town became a media circus overnight. News crews lined the streets, and strangers wandered along the lakeshore searching for answers. Police tightened their search, questioning employees from every local waste management company. What emerged was a disturbing picture: a network of nighttime shipments, off-the-books chemical containers, and falsified disposal records. But the most haunting question remained unanswered. Who had silenced Emily Carter, and why had they chosen to hide the truth beneath the dark waters of Lake Vermilion? As suspicion spread, investigators focused on the black pickup truck seen near Lake Vermilion. After checking hundreds of vehicle registrations in the area, they traced a match to a man named Daniel Brooks, a 42-year-old contractor who worked for NorthWaste Solutions, the same company Emily had been investigating for illegal dumping. Daniel had lived in Clearwater for years, kept to himself, and was known around town for repairing boats and maintaining the docks. He had no prior criminal record, no history of violence, and nothing about him seemed out of place. Yet when detectives visited his property, his behavior was oddly calm, almost rehearsed. At first, Daniel cooperated. He admitted he had worked night shifts transporting waste materials, but claimed everything was handled legally. When asked about the night Emily disappeared, he said he was home, asleep. But the alibi quickly fell apart when investigators obtained his phone records. At 12:03 a.m., a call had pinged from a cell tower near Lake Vermilion, minutes after the pickup truck was last seen on surveillance footage. A search warrant was issued for Daniel's property. His modest home sat on the edge of a thick forest, surrounded by rusting machinery and oil barrels. Inside, police found muddy boots near the back door, a torn jacket, and a wristwatch with a broken strap. Forensics confirmed the mud-matched soil samples from the lakeshore. In a shed behind his house, officers discovered something far more disturbing: a pile of tarps, rope, and steel drum lids similar to the one pulled from the lake. One tarp still held faint traces of concrete dust, but the most chilling find was hidden beneath the garage floor. A small trapdoor led to a cramped underground space, no larger than a closet. Inside were newspaper clippings, photos of missing persons, and a detailed map of Lake Vermilion with several red markings. There were also glass jars labeled with dates, each filled with murky water samples, as if Daniel had been tracking pollution levels or collecting evidence himself. The discovery left investigators divided. Was Daniel the killer, or was he documenting something bigger, something he wasn't supposed to know. Before police could arrest him for questioning, Daniel disappeared. His truck was gone, his house left unlocked, and a pot of coffee still warm on the kitchen counter. Search teams spread across the woods and waterways, but no sign of him was found. Locals claimed they saw a man resembling Daniel near the lake at dawn, walking into the fog without looking back. The case grew more unsettling with every passing day. Authorities released a public statement naming Daniel Brooks as a person of interest. That announcement split the town. Some believed he was guilty, while others insisted he was being framed. The story attracted national attention, painting Clearwater as a place where secrets festered beneath the surface. By winter's first snowfall, the once peaceful town had become a stage for fear and speculation. The lake froze over, concealing whatever evidence might still rest at the bottom. And somewhere in the silence of the pines, a man who knew too much had vanished into the mist, leaving only questions and the echo of what truly happened to Emily Carter. 2 months after Daniel Brooks vanished, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police launched one of the largest search operations in the province's history. The investigation had shifted from a local mystery to a national scandal. Public pressure grew as more connections emerged between NorthWaste Solutions and several missing persons cases over the past decade. Each case involved people who had spoken out about water pollution, toxic dumping, or safety violations. For years, these disappearances were treated as isolated incidents. Now they formed a pattern that pointed directly toward the same company and, perhaps, toward Daniel Brooks himself. Winter had begun to thaw when divers returned to Lake Vermilion. Using advanced sonar scanners, they mapped the lakebed in detail. The technology revealed a chilling sight: multiple metallic objects buried beneath layers of silt. Over several weeks, divers recovered 6 sealed steel drums identical to the one found earlier. Each drum was carefully lifted to the surface, labeled, and sent for forensic analysis. Inside were fragments of personal belongings, clothing, jewelry, and tools, linked to people reported missing across neighboring towns. Though decomposition had erased much of the evidence, DNA analysis confirmed at least 4 of the victims. The revelation devastated the community. Lake Vermilion, once a place for fishing and quiet reflection, was now synonymous with horror. News crews filled the shoreline, capturing every grim discovery. Families of the missing gathered daily, desperate for closure. Investigators began piecing together timelines, connecting the dates of disappearances with recorded waste shipments made by NorthWaste Solutions. The overlap was undeniable. Every time the company conducted a late-night delivery near the lake or river network, someone who had raised environmental concerns vanished soon after. Still, one question remained: was Daniel Brooks acting alone? The hidden room beneath his garage hinted that he might not have been just a killer, but a reluctant participant, perhaps documenting evidence against the people he worked for. Detectives revisited his property and re-examined the water samples, noticing something strange. Each jar was labeled with the same chemical compound name: methyl chloride, a substance used in industrial solvents and strictly regulated due to its toxicity. This was the very pollutant Emily Carter had been investigating before her disappearance. Then came the discovery that changed everything. In early December, a local fisherman casting near the southern end of the lake felt his net snag on something heavy. When authorities arrived, they pulled from the water a large, rusted object, the remains of a black pickup truck. Its windows were shattered, its doors rusted shut, and its license plate confirmed it belonged to Daniel Brooks. Inside, slumped against the steering wheel, was Daniel's body. The medical examiner determined he had been dead for several weeks. Clutched tightly in his hand was a sealed envelope protected in plastic. Written across it were 5 words in shaky handwriting: "The ones who poisoned the water." It wasn't just a clue, it was an accusation, and it meant the truth behind the Lake Vermilion murders was far from over. The discovery of Daniel Brooks's body and the envelope in his hand sent shockwaves through the country. The RCMP immediately secured the area and examined the truck with extreme caution. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of paper covered in smudged ink, but the words were still legible. It contained 5 names: senior executives of NorthWaste Solutions, the same corporation Emily Carter had been investigating before her disappearance. The letter also listed dates corresponding to the confirmed missing persons, each coinciding with a shipment logged by the company. Forensic analysis confirmed the handwriting was Daniel's. What had appeared to be a murder-suicide now looked like the final act of a man who knew he was being hunted. Investigators raided NorthWaste's headquarters in Thunder Bay, uncovering boxes of falsified documents, shredded contracts, and offshore bank transfers. The evidence suggested years of illegal dumping across Ontario's river systems, carried out under the company's orders to save millions in disposal costs. When inspectors grew suspicious or whistleblowers threatened exposure, they vanished, silenced, and hidden beneath the waters they tried to protect. Emily had stumbled into a web of corruption that extended far beyond a single town. For weeks, the investigation consumed Canada's headlines. Families of the victims gave tearful interviews, while environmental activists demanded justice for those who had died trying to protect the land. Public outrage forced government agencies to reopen old cases previously dismissed as accidents. It became clear that Lake Vermilion was not an isolated site. It was part of a vast dumping network spanning multiple provinces. The once quiet region was now seen as the epicenter of one of the country's darkest environmental crimes. As the case unfolded in court, the 5 executives named in Daniel's note were arrested. Forensic accountants traced millions of dollars in hidden payments, used to bribe local officials and silence inspectors. Under mounting pressure, one of the executives confessed. He admitted that Emily had discovered the illegal operations and that Daniel Brooks, initially hired as a driver, had accidentally uncovered the truth. When Emily confronted the company, orders were given to take care of it. Daniel, forced to participate in her disappearance, was threatened afterward to ensure his silence. Guilt and fear consumed him, leading him to collect evidence in secret before he was finally eliminated. The trial lasted months, and the convictions that followed became a landmark in Canadian legal history. Each of the men responsible received life sentences without parole. NorthWaste Solutions was permanently shut down, and cleanup efforts began across the contaminated rivers and lakes. The government declared the site of Lake Vermilion a protected environmental zone, renaming it Memorial Bay in honor of the victims who lost their lives trying to defend it. Yet the tragedy left scars that never fully healed. Locals say that when dawn breaks and the fog drifts over the lake, the water ripples even when the wind is still. Some believe it's just the current. Others whisper that it's the restless memory of those buried beneath the surface, the souls who rose against corruption and paid with their lives. And so, in the quiet town of Clearwater, the reflection of the lake remains dark, carrying the secrets of the crime that shook Canada. The mystery of Lake Vermilion revealed far more than a single disappearance. It uncovered greed, corruption, and the cost of silence. Emily Carter's courage, Daniel Brooks's guilt, and the lives lost beneath those dark waters became a warning to never ignore the truth, no matter how deep it's buried. The once peaceful town of Clearwater will forever remember the shadows that hid behind its sunny days, and the lake that reflected both beauty and tragedy. If you were gripped by this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more chilling true crime documentaries. Stay curious, stay aware. Evil often hides in plain sight.